Hey guys, and welcome to my pickups of April 2023. Got plenty of great stuff to show you here for this month, so let's go and get started. So first couple things I'll show you here is a bunch of like big box stuff and miscellaneous stuff that let's just get this stuff out of the way because a bunch of big stuff here that I want to get out of here. So first thing, it is an empty box of a PlayStation Vita Wi-Fi and 3G model. Reason I got this, sadly I threw away my original box of my Vita launch model that I got like way back then. But yeah, just really happy to have this once again because it is really hard to find just like box only listings of a 3G model of a Vita. It's just going to get harder and harder to find, and my goal with this is like I want to get like boxes, like complete in boxes of like all of consoles of like from like the big well-known brands, that is, so to have this like in a display case as like a set piece of history, you know. So yeah, very happy to get this finally. Alright, so if you guys remember from last month, I got a copy of Bravely Default on the 3DS. Got it for free, matter of fact. So if you guys remember that story, it was a whole eBay scam that I wanted to get the collector's edition specifically of that game. Well, this month I finally got the collector's edition of the game here. So I had like, you know, a standard copy of the game, but I just needed all the contents of the collector's edition. And I did find a listing that was everything but the game. So yeah, really happy to honestly like get a deal on this whole thing here because, you know, I got the game itself for free and it was a brand new copy as well too. So yeah, quite happy to get this. Alright, next few things here is a couple accessories here, and these are all a box and complete ones. So the first one, it is the link cable for the original PlayStation. And for those that are unaware, I'm taking a lot of you probably are, but the PS1 for like the launch model and later revisions, not all of them still had this, but the link cable was something that you would connect to your system and you would connect it to another PlayStation, and that's essentially how you did like local LAN for like the PS1 games. There's a couple games supported that back then, but you can find like a list online for all the ones that did. But yeah, just saw a listing with this really cheap and just had to get it. And another thing here, like it came with like the link cable as well too though, and they just like threw this in here, but it's also a boxed RFU adapter for the PS1. When it comes to RF, it is the one video here that you should absolutely never use on your systems. Like for me, I use component on all my retro systems, and for like the more modern stuff, I obviously use HDMI. But you know, given that it's an accessory for the PS1 that's complete boxed and all that, like why not? Let's get it. And finally, in the same listing, this is like the primary reason why that I like bought that other stuff, but this was the main thing of why that I went for that listing. But it is a boxed multi-tap. So as we all know, the PS1 and the PS2 has something similar like this. The multi-tap is what you would use so you can have up to 4 players on the PS1 and the PS2 for its respective multi-tap. But as you can see, it's a complete in-box one here, and it even has like the original wrapping styrofoam that was around the multi-tap inside of here, and also the little pamphlet of instructions for it as well. So yeah, quite happy to get this here because same thing with like that Vita box that I mentioned. I also not just like the console boxes I want to get, but even like the official accessories that you could have gotten with the systems. I want to have those in like the display cases with the consoles because, you know, it's all like a historical display piece. Alright, next thing now, pretty nice thing that I did for this month. I managed to meet up with a friend of mine that I haven't seen for what feels like almost 4 years, I would say. We used to work together, that's how we met. It was like my first job that I worked at back then. It was his first job too. So, and we always like kept in contact online, but now like 3.5 years later, we finally met up with each other, and as a result, we went game hunting around town. And this one store that we stopped by got a few things here, and this first thing that I got, it is an NES Advantage. It's basically an arcade stick that has, all the buttons for an NES controller, plus turbo functionality, and it does have like a switch here that you can switch for 1 and 2 player. Just start and select there, and this slow button, if I recall, that makes the game run a lot slower if you want to do that, I guess, to like cheat in a way. But yeah, it was really cheap. It's in very good condition overall. There's no signs of yellowing, and the bottom is also like very clean, almost no signs of scuffs or anything like that. So yeah, quite happy to get this. Oops. And then I did also get a new console, and it is an NES Top Loader. The Top Loader it's a version of the NES that I'm sure like most people would be after, because it's the one where it is an actual straight load compared to the tray loading mechanism of the front loader system that you can see down there. And though the biggest problem with the top loader is, if you can see, it only has RF right there. And if you heard me mention the RF adapter for that PlayStation, this is the one video standard that you so don't want to use on your retro systems. So why did I get this then? Well, I do plan on doing an RGB mod with this, because I do have ordered Tim Worthington's RGB mod, which I did the same thing to my front loader system right there. And in that case, like, I want an NES that is a straight load, because like I was playing my front loader like a couple days ago. It was like Batman, the video game, great game if you haven't played that before. I was close to the end of the game, and then all of a sudden the game just froze up, because of the unreliability that is the 72-pin connector in the front loader. And there's like, all right, I had enough of this garbage here. So went out and got a top loader, and did come with a couple of extra things here that I'll get to that later on. So yeah, once I get the RGB board in, I will be mailing this out to an eBay modder, which I do recommend you guys use him as a RGB mod installation for an NES. I'll try to link his page in the description if you're at all interested in. I would try it, but I don't have like the proper tools necessary to do the mod itself, because it's not doing an NES RGB mod, for those that aren't aware. It's not something that's for beginners for soldering. It's something that you should have experience with soldering for some time, and it's just I don't have access to the tools necessary to do it. I've done an X Station mod before, so soldering is not new to me. I've been trying more and more of it. So I'm just going to send this to a professional, and plus it's a top loader. This is kind of like a pricier system because it came out very late in the NES's lifespan. So yeah, I want to make sure this is in great condition overall after the mod and all that. So hence why I'm going to entrust the mod being handled by a professional. All right, and this here, it is a limited edition game for the Switch. It is Shin Megami Tensei 5 Fall of Man Premium Edition. Let's see, this edition, it comes with a sling bag, a 2-disc soundtrack, and a steel bookcase, and a Forbidden Book of Demons, which, if I recall, that's an art book that's in here. I haven't played much of the SMT games. Like, I've played like a lot of the Persona games, but haven't tried SMT yet. Found this in a local store. It was brand new and was much cheaper than what a normal sealed copy of this would go for online. So yeah, had to get it. And since I'm a big fan of SMT stuff overall and Atlas RPGs, just couldn't resist this at all. Last thing that I got that I want to show you here is this right here. This is a Sony 1341 PVM. I finally found a PVM around my area, and thankfully it didn't cost that much at all to get it. If you guys don't know, PVMs or professional video monitors, they are a high class grade of a CRT display that wasn't made available for us consumers back then. That these are the best type of CRTs that you can use to play retro games on. I have had my Sony 24-inch Trinitron for like quite a while, matter of fact, but PVMs/BVMs as well, they're a whole new ball field, let me tell you. I am really happy that I got this here. Did have to get a couple extra components to get it to work with all my systems, but the picture out of it, absolutely gorgeous, and having it like right here on my desk, it will really be helpful because in the future I do plan on doing some streaming for some retro games on my actual systems here, playing off original hardware, and being it like on my desk and in my computer's just right next to it as well. That'll just make it super convenient here. So yeah, if you guys, if you're at all wondering if you should get a PVM, you're into retro gaming, if you do get the chance to, absolutely get one. Don't go smaller than a 13-inch, because if you go smaller than that, it's really, really small, obviously, that you would have to be like really up onto it. But this right here, with it being 13 inches, I can still be like sitting back right here, and it still looks very, very good, and I'm not like squinting my eyes or anything like that. So yeah, that's the PVM. Absolutely love this thing. This is probably my favorite thing that I got here. So right, moving on to some more games right here. So this is a first stack, a couple PS3 games here. First one is Resident Evil 5. This is just a standard version of Resident Evil 5. I do want to get the Gold Edition because that version does have all the DLC on the disc for the PS3 version of that game. I just got this because I'm a diehard fan of the series. I want to have like everything ever released for it. So yeah, that's that. Next thing, this is a Japanese import of this game. It is Aquanaut's Holiday. So this game, it's essentially like those underwater exploration type games, essentially. The Japanese version, it is very, very common. There is an English-Chinese version, I think that's what it's called, and that is a very, very rare copy of this game. I did not care for that at all. I just wanted to just have the game in some form here, and given the Japanese version, very, very cheap, and yeah, just got it for this month. Alright, next game, couple PS2 games here. First one is Dragon Ball Z Sagas. This is the one, like, Black Sheep DBZ game on the PS2. This one, it's kind of like a somewhat of an open world or open field combat game. It's hard to describe, but pretty much like every other DBZ game, it would be like a one-on-one fighting game, where like the Tenkaichi games, it was like a big open field and you're fighting one person, and the Budokai games, kind of like more of a normal fighting game, akin to like Street Fighter, Tekken, Soul Calibur, etc., etc. Hence why this is kind of like what most people consider like the worst game on the PS2 from what it seems like, but still is like a fun time though if you're a fan of DBZ games though. And next one is Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3. So with this, I just need to get Tenkaichi 2 and Infinite World, if I remember that's what it's called. I should have every single DBZ game on the PS2. Budokai 3, it is a very, very good like sequel of Budokai. Well, most people ignore Budokai 2 as it wasn't that good, honestly. Budokai 3, plenty of fun. Really, really enjoy this game still. So yeah, that's that. Alright, now 2 Wii games here, and this one, I'm really happy to get this. It is Fragile Dreams Farewell Ruins of the Moon. I picked this up on a price charting as a seller had it on there for a really, really good price. This is, my opinion, this is probably the best hidden gem on the Wii. Not a lot of people know about this game, and yet it's an amazing game. It's essentially what I wanted Silent Hill Shattered Memories to be for the Wii, because it is kind of like a horror game in a way, and somewhat of a walking simulator, but when you actually encounter enemies, you can actually fight them. You have weapons, and you can actually fight back and your enemies as well. In like Shattered Memories, you couldn't do that at all. The story and the universe, really, really interesting, and honestly, like, it is pretty depressing, truth be told, for like what the main character is going through. So yeah, it is. It's not that expensive compared to like other very expensive games on other platforms. Given that the Wii is still a very cheap system to buy games for these days, so hence why that whenever I mention, I always say if you want a system to buy games for, do consider the Wii, because a lot of its stuff is still very, very cheap. This game being one of the more pricier ones, but it's definitely worth it though if you are a fan of like a very unique game that's not like anything else. And next game, I used to have this back then. I have no idea what happened to my original copy, but very happy to get this back. It's Wario Land Shake It. This is the very last Wario Land game that we have gotten. I swear this game, this series is something Nintendo seriously needs to bring back one of these days. You know, they brought back Advance Wars recently. I'm really had that finally happen. Sadly, I couldn't get that game this month, but I will later on, hopefully throughout May. I'll pick that up finally. But Nintendo, come on, do another Wario Land game, please, because IMO, these games are much better than almost all 2D Mario games. Throwing that out there right now. But yeah, I absolutely love these games so much. They're so much fun that every single entry has like their own unique gimmick or play style and whatnot. So yeah, if you haven't played this series, absolutely do so. We got a few 3DS games here. First one is Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn. This was the very last game Nintendo made for the system. I'm pretty sure that's correct. It's kind of interesting they repeated history with that, because if you guys remember, on the Wii, the Kirby's Dream Land collection, which I think that was made on Kirby's 20th anniversary, if I remember. Oh, wait, no, sure, it was his 25th anniversary, matter of fact. Yeah, they did that on the Wii, and that was Nintendo's last game they ever published on the Wii, and with this Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn being the last one they published on the 3DS. I'm pretty sure that's what they did. And as a result, this game didn't sell too well because it was a very late release on the 3DS. It was when, you know, the Switch is all hot and new. I think the Switch might have been like 2 or 3 years old by the time this came out. So yeah, this definitely would have gotten overshadowed. So as a result, this game has went up in price. Like, ever since the news broke when the eShop store was going to close, when Nintendo first like set the dates when they were going to do that, that's when prices for this started shooting up. But very happy to get it. Got it for like a better price compared to what it normally goes for. But yeah, good to have this off the list finally. Right, next game is, I used to have this on the 3DS when I had my original one, so really happy to get this back here. The Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D. This game came out in the launch year of the system's lifespan. Like, I know it was like March 27th, 2011. That's when it came out, and I think it was June of that year that this game came out. And for the longest time, people considered this the best game on the system, which is really nothing but, you know, a remaster of Ocarina of Time at the end of the day. Still the best way to experience OOT, in my opinion, because, you know, it's got much better graphics, better performance as well, so, you know, you're not playing on a very garbage frame rate compared to the N64 version. And plus, it does have the Master Quest campaign as well, too, on this cartridge. Like, as soon as you do, like, beat the main campaign, then you unlock Master Quest, and not only that, but Master Quest not only does it have, like, all new layouts for all the temples, but they even mirrored the game too, kind of like what they did with Twilight Princess on the GameCube and Wii. So yeah, if you still haven't played OOT, in all honesty, this is definitely the best version to play if you haven't gotten it yet. Right, this next game, I've had like the game itself for quite a while, but I didn't have the case and the manual for this one until now. It is Zelda Link Between Worlds. So it would have been either late 2019 or early 2020 is when I got the cartridge for this game. It was at the time my previous place. It was my local GameStop around that area. I thought it was coming with like the case and the manual, but no, it was just the cartridge. Hence why that I got it for a really cheap price over there. So till now, I just finally got the case and the manual for it. You may notice this is the version where it's got like this logo right here, which is basically the Game of the Year version of this. But underneath this artwork, I do have the regular one, because when I bought the game at GameStop, it came in one of those like garbage black cases that, you know, is all damaged and whatnot, but it had the original artwork on it, and underneath this is that original artwork, so I have both in here, and I just slipped the Game of the Year one on there, so yeah, there's that. And next game here is Final Fantasy Collection, the Pixel Remasters. we all knew like eventually Square Enix was going to release all the pixel remasters on the consoles, and and if I remember, the reason that they did it now, it's due to the anniversary of the series or something with it. I don't remember what it was offhand, but nonetheless, very, very awesome to finally have all of like original six Final Fantasy games, and very well done pixel remasters they are too. Plenty of great quality of life improvements on them that, you know, nowadays with it on consoles and on the Switch as well too, it's people can experience these games here. Very, very good versions of them too. So yeah, there's that. Alright, this next game, this is from Two Dudes Gaming, which if you are in the area of Bristol, Tennessee, stop by their store. They are one of the best stores all of Tennessee for gaming. That they do have a pretty big online store through eBay, and hence is where I got this from here. And this game, it is Black Matrix. It's a Japanese import game where it's a dual disc game. This is the first Japanese dual disc game that I got on the PS1, and this was like super cheap. There's not a English patch for this game, and this is like an RPG of some sorts, but I'm pretty sure someone will make it one of these days. And plus, it was really cheap, and I just really liked that artwork too on the front here. And for what I've seen of like gameplay and clips, like it does look like it's a pretty fun and interesting game too. So hence why that I got it. And next game, this is these next two here. This is stuff that I got with my friend where I got that NES Advantage from here. So here's everything else that I got from the store. First one is Hot Shots Golf 2. The Hot Shots Golf games I've mentioned before. This is like one of the best golfing games you can get overall. Just they're very like arcadey, very good sense of humor, and bunch of characters as well are very expressive too. So yeah, any Hot Shots Golf game on any PlayStation system, absolutely get them. And the next game here is Wild Guns Reloaded. If you're into the Super Nintendo, you would recognize this game, or in that case, it would just be called Wild Guns. That is one of the more valuable games on the Super Nintendo. Not one of the most expensive, but definitely in like top 15, I would say, for that system, for just like an individual cart. It's basically like it's a shooter game where like the person is standing like right in the foreground, and you're just shooting stuff that's out in the distance. For this version, they did introduce new characters and some new weapons, if I remember. So yeah, really happy to get this here for, you know, a game that's on the Super Nintendo is really expensive, but remastered better version, super cheap to get this still, thankfully. Alright, this next game, this is basically a fan-made game here, or this game does exist over in, if I remember, in PAL territories and in Japan as well too. This is in this case it'd be like a Mega Drive game, but it's one that is just super expensive over there. Like the cart alone would probably cost you like $500 if I recall from seeing prices of it online. But the game here in question, it is a Gley Lancer. So, as I mentioned, this is just a fan-made English reproduction of it. And it's very well made one too, though. That, if I recall, it was, I think it was Retrobit. They did do like a collector's edition of this game here. I just got this from like a seller on eBay. It's a pretty nice case too. The artwork's pretty good, and the back, of course, does look pretty good as well. This game, it's a shmup, if I didn't mention that already, but this does exist on other platforms. Like, it's on the PlayStation Store if you guys do want to try it out. It's a really fun shmup game. The music's pretty good. The animations, or like the presentation of it, very nice looking overall. So yeah, definitely pick this game up if you guys haven't already. Alright, next game here, this is Ratchet and Clank Size Matters. This originally was a PSP game that later on they ported to the PlayStation 2, and this is the better way to play the game, in all honesty, because on the PSP it is nothing but screen crunch for a 3D platformer if you guys want to deal with that. Even then, this isn't one of the better Ratchet and Clank games. This is kind of like a game that's mostly forgotten about by the fan base, in all honesty. But it still is like a fun game, though, to play and all that stuff. So, but if you have the option, definitely get the PS2 version over the PSP version. Next game here. So, like, I do already have this game on the PS2, but I do want to get, like, all versions of this game, because this game is just so much fun and just so cool. Def Jam Fight for New York on the OG Xbox. So if you guys have seen, like, pickups videos from, like, many months prior, I did get the PS2 version of this game, which I got it for a really good deal overall, because I bought, like, a complete copy of that. The disc was in horrible condition, but did get it resurfaced, and the seller that I bought the copy from, he refunded me like half the cost of it. So overall, I got like that game like half off compared to what it normally goes for. The OG Xbox version, which it is the best version of the game in all honesty, because you know third-party games are always best on the OG Xbox back then. And does have, you know, 4 controller ports on the system too, so you didn't need a PS2 multi-tap to play a 4-player multiplayer on it, of course. But still the cheapest version of the game, because still OG Xbox stuff is just worthless still for the most part. This is probably like the most expensive game I ever would want on the OG Xbox. There might be like 1 or 2 that are in the same price range that I would probably want on the system, but great to get this off the list. So you still haven't played Def Jam, like you have to. It is such a fun fighting game, one of the best fighting games of all time. Absolutely picked up this game. That it's definitely worth the price that it goes for. All right, last stack right here. Now, these are 2 NES games, and they did come with my NES Top Loader that you saw earlier from the same seller, and thankfully these are ones that I needed. The first one is Dr. Mario. It's Dr. Mario, what else can be said about it? Nice, like, different version of Tetris, you could say, in a way. Dr. Mario does exist on, like, many other Nintendo platforms, and, you know, hey, it was just something that was included with the system, so cool to get this here, since I didn't have this game already. And the other one is Rad Racer. I think most people consider this like one of the better racing games on the NES. I know this is like one that I do see often when most people talk about racing games on the system. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this the one where you see like Mario and Luigi come out to do maintenance on the vehicle? It's either this or like some other one that I'm thinking of right now, but yeah, there's that. And the next couple things here, we got some really good PS1 long box games right here. Been getting more into those lately, as I do have like a whole list of all the ones that I ever want to get, and thankfully did get a couple of like big ones off the list here. The first one is D. This is an interesting game overall. So it's a first-person point-and-click-ish adventure game that runs very, very slow. Because honestly, this game is really, really dated for its gameplay because of how slow it is. But it's a very interesting, like, you know, point-and-click horror-like adventure game that, from what I've read, I haven't like played through the game yet, but you're on like a 2-hour time limit in game, that there's no saving at all. You have to beat the game in like a single run, that after that 2-hour time limit is up, it's essentially game over for you. So pretty, you know, like I said, pretty interesting game. It is very, very outdated for its gameplay because of how slow it goes, but very happy to get this off the list. So this game does exist on the Saturn as well, and honestly, it's kind of the cheaper version of this game, which is pretty surprising given, you know, it's the Saturn. One thing to note about this, if you ever do pick up this game, it does come in 3 discs, so you got disc 1 right there, and the other 2 discs are in these sleeves right here. So as they are sitting in the system right there, they are pretty loose, as you can see. So what I would recommend, if you're going to be moving this around a lot, get like a thin layer of bubble wrap and just place it in there, and that will prevent the disc from popping out. Because when this was delivered to me, like, the discs were very loose in there. Like, not the seller's fault, but he could have like put in a bubble wrap in there. But discs are all perfectly fine though. I ripped them to my PC here, and they all work perfectly. So yeah, thank God. that is one of the more harder to find PS1 long boxes as well too. So yeah, it's great to get that off the list. Now, the one PS1 long box that objectively, this is the best one out of like the whole set that you can get for the system, and I am so happy to finally own this here. It is Resident Evil. The very first Resident Evil game, this is where it all started, was this long box release on the system. So yeah, very happy to finally get this. It showed up for a very good deal on PriceSharing.com that I did not hesitate to get at all. A thing to note, this is the one version of the PS1 long boxes, where as you can see, it's got the ridge right there, while the D here, it's like the jewel case-like design that Sega CD and Saturn games use. I do prefer these ones right here, because, you know, they got the ridge, and plus inside, they do have, so take this out here, so you can see underneath the disc spindle, there's more artwork right there. And if you can see right there, get a good shot at this, it's like inside the mansion of the game, as you can see. And underneath the manual, like some games would do this as well, but even underneath the manual, it's got more artwork right there. So you can see it's the lab you get to at the end of the game there. So yeah, quite happy to finally get this. It's not in the most perfect shape because the spindle right here, it's not keeping the disc in anymore, but that is what, you know, thing of bubble wrap or the foam inserts are for. The disc works perfectly fine here. It rips my computer and it's all good. So yeah, very happy to finally get this. Resident Evil is like one of the very few game franchises I want to get everything for, and, you know, very happy to finally get where it all started. Another thing that this has a problem with, which this can be fixed easily, for like these ones with the ridge, the artwork, it can rip off here, and the tabs there are easy to break too, but for like this artwork here, that's easy to fix. You just get a thing of glue stick and just rub it underneath here and just place it back onto the case here, and it's not going to be coming loose there. So yeah, I'll be fixing that pretty soon here. Is definitely want to keep this in good shape. Alright, next one is Gex. Gex is such a forgotten like mascot character. Like he had like 3 games on the PS1, and he did get, I think it was the second game was also on the N64, but I'm gonna get them on the PlayStation here. And the Gex one, it's an okay game, honestly. The character, after a while, it can get annoying with all the constant talking that he does and whatnot, but with this being a long box with the rich design, definitely had to get it for sure. I already have like the jewel case version of that game, but given that I'm after a small like set of long boxes, like just had to get it off the list. And the last one here is Darkstalkers, the Night Warriors. Darkstalkers is it's a fighting game series that made by Capcom, so you know they own Street Fighter and a couple other ones, but Darkstalkers is one they really need to do more of, because I think the last one we got was Darkstalkers Resurrection, which was on the PS3, digital only in the States at least, but I'm pretty sure this was a launch title on the PS1 back then, if I recall correctly, because I think that there was like a total of like 108 PS1 long boxes. It's close to like that number of how many was made, and this is how like they all came initially. Then after a while, just jewel cases obviously became the logical thing to do, because, you know, smaller and just much easier to store and all that compared to these. These are just impractical, but they're so cool to collect, hence why that I'm going after them right now. Alright, and the last thing here, we will end things on a high note. If you're into the PS3, you know this is one that is definitely on your watch list if you're into collecting for that system. And was after this game for a while, but the price is always really, really high for it until now, with after like selling some debts throughout this month, and after like a big move that I recently gone through, is like, you know what, it's time to treat myself here alongside with this PVM, obviously. But this game, it is Painkiller, Hell, and Damnation. So, like I said, if you're into the PS3, you know, this game is very, very rare and fairly expensive on the system. It's essentially, it's a Doom-like game, where you're playing as like this badass and you're just fighting hordes of demons, where the main character's name's Daniel, and he's trying to like rescue his wife Catherine. This is a remake of the original Painkiller that came out many years ago on PC, and this is the first time that it's been on console, at least for like this game specifically. Prior, there is a one Painkiller game on the Xbox 360, and the other console release of the series was this here, and I'm sure I don't think there's a 360 version of this game. Therefore, the PS3 version is the only console version of this game. This game is on PC, so it's not exclusive to the system, thankfully, because this game is pretty good, in all honesty. But yeah, with me being like, I'm a huge fan of these types of games. Any first-person shooter that's in the style of Doom, that is my favorite kind of shooters aside from Half-Life. Had to get this game, and thankfully this checks off a big thing on my PS3 wish list. Now that everything else I want to get for the system is like 1/8 the cost of this game here. So yeah, there's Painkiller for you. Glad to get this off the list here. So that will do it for this month's pickups, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and do appreciate it if you would share this video, because, you know, plenty of great stuff that we got here this month. So with that said, do make sure to rate this video and do subscribe for more content like this in the future, and do stay tuned in the future. I'm hoping this month I'm going to start streaming some retro games, so if you guys are still around, do look forward to that. So until then, guys, I will see you next time.